So somebody asked me how I made a resource pack for a mod. So I'm going to be covering that here. I already have one outtake because OBS was completely frozen because my Minecraft game didn't close, and my OBS does not like recording on my computer with high usage and stuff. So basically, what I've done is I've basically gone to my Minecraft folder, which is located at, you can always type in %appdata%, like so. Doesn't matter on capitalization, and it will bring you here. You can always do it from your start menu if you're on Windows 7 or later. Actually, Windows Vista or later. And you can do %appdata%, and it will do the same thing. If you're on a Windows XP machine, like you can always do Command R, and it will do this, and it also works on any Windows version. And that will work too. Or if you have hidden folders like show on your machine, you can always go to local disk for users, your username, your account, app data, and it will show here with like a faded icon, which means it's hidden folder. And you go to, so basically once you're in app data, you go to roaming, and then you click on .minecraft, and it should be at the top because it's got a, it's by default it's ordered in alphanumeric order. So if it's not, you just click on this maybe a couple times, and then this should show up on top. Now what you do in here is you go to profile. Well, actually no, you don't go to profiles. It depends on what your game is set up like, because mine is set so that my game runs the each of my like profiles to like different subcategories. It's for organization. It's my personal way of doing it. Now once you're in your once where your mod is downloaded, you can always just download it on your desktop or something. What you do is you basically go to Dragon Mounts, and I have no idea if you can use WinRAR for this, but I recommend 7-zip because it works quite well and it's fast, it's decent. And what you want to do is you want to right click on Dragon Mount and open with, actually no, not open with, go to 7-zip, open archive if it's installed. Again, I have no idea if WinRAR works for this, but I assume it does, considering they're very similar software. Hit open archive, and you'll be brought here. Now, what you need here is you basically want to copy assets out by like clicking extract. I don't think copy does the same thing. It does something else I've not experimented with. What you want to work with here is extract, and you click OK, and once that's done, it should appear here. Now you can drag this anywhere on your computer, including your desktop. What you might want to do is go into resource packs, and I'm going to do new folder. You probably want to put it in a new folder, but temporary pack, that's what I'm naming it. Let's just pretend this is a little resource pack here. Now, because I did Control X or cut, it'll move the folder instead of just copying it here, because I don't want to leave it in my mods folder. Just I'm going to delete it later anyways, but hence the name temporary. But assets, like this is your thing, right? But now if you try to load up a resource pack just with this assets folder alone, it's not going to work. It's not going to show up. What you want is this file right here. This is critical right here, this pack.mcmeta. Now you don't need Notepad++, the program I'm using right here. You can use Notepad, but Notepad just has it like all in one line. It's a bit nicer to look at like this, but if you want to make a new line like I have here, like this right here, this little character /n, we'll basically put this underneath this in the resource packs menu. I'm pretty sure you can only have up to 2 lines. I'm sorry for hitting the microphone. I might do that a few times, but... And I apologize for any sniffling. I have a cold this week. Now, if you have this file, it will load. Now, this right here can be anything inside these quotation marks. Everything else, I have no idea what pack format is. I always leave it by default. That might have something to do with why it always says my packs are incompatible with the game, because maybe it's a new pack format number and I'm unaware of that, even though my packs are made for the correct version. But basically, once you have this file and anything in here, the pack will show up in your Minecraft resource packs folder. Now, to begin modifying things, what you do is find out you're in the other one. But yeah, what you want to do is you want to basically go to Assets, Dragon Mounts, and of course, if you want to modify sounds, you basically go in here, and I recommend using Audacity for these if you want to modify these, because it can load OGG files, and that's very critical for Minecraft. But what you want to do is you want to go to, if you want to modify textures though, you go and you go to Textures, you go to Entities, Dragons here, and not modify the thing because I don't want 2 windows really. Anyways, now here you'll see the different dragons. Now if I'm going to modify Aether, now the glow basically means any texture that is overlaying the base texture, which illuminates despite the lighting levels. So if it's dark out, it'll still glow, just like the Ender Dragon's mouth and eyes in the base game of Minecraft. So by default here, you'll have the mouth have like a glow inside of it, and for the Aether Dragon it's yellow, and the eyes and the front of the mouth, or very back of the mouth I should say, is also glowing. Now if you delete this, it will be transparent, meaning there will be no glows. But please note, if you see any white textures in your game on the dragon once you're done modifying it, it's because you're using something that does not support transparency, such as Microsoft Paint. What you want to do is avoid Microsoft Paint. What you want to do is avoid Microsoft Paint by downloading Paint.net, Photoshop, GIMP, what have you, anything that supports transparency. And I do recommend Paint.net because it's free. All you gotta do is go to getpaint.net, and that's how you grab it. It's free, so don't worry about paying anything. If you do pay for Paint.net, it's because you are not on the official site and you're downloading some pirated version that somebody's trying to sell for money. They even tell you that in the installer file, that if you paid money, refund it, and yeah, that kind of stuff. But you can always donate to them. But basically, to avoid white texture issues in the game, don't use Paint, Microsoft Paint. Use something like Paint.net or Photoshop or what have you. You know the drill, right? Maybe. And of course, the main file for like the base texture is this right here. It's the dragon texture right here. This is what you're looking for if you're making textures. Now, one thing to note is if you're confused at which side each texture is or which face it's on, I can always recommend like just pasting some random like color on it, and that will help you determine which face it is. So like let's say I can't figure out what these faces are, I just do some random color splotches and it will basically show up on the correct faces. Of course, some of them you'll be able to understand, like this is the right side of the head. Of course, if you're looking from it in your perspective, it's the left side. And then this is, of course, like the front. And this is basically at the back of the snout. Of course, modifying these things right here, like the eyes and the mouth anything yellow here, that actually does get overlaid by the overlay texture, which is called glow, like I mentioned earlier. So if you modify these to make them like pink or something, it's not going to show up unless you modify the glow or delete the glow, making it transparent. Of course, if you just delete the glow file, it's going to use the default glow from the actual mod file, meaning it'll be glowing anyways. So if you don't want the glow, you have to have the glow file, but have it transparent instead. Basically meaning if I had just this file here and I didn't have this file, then it would still have a glowing texture because it'd be using the default texture. So what you want to do to avoid this is not just delete the file, but what you want to do is, instead of deleting the file, come in here and press delete, and then you save it. Now, here are some tips on just live editing. When you're in game and you have this in your resource packs folder and you have it set up to be loaded from the game, you can always Control S and then you save it, and then you basically, when you're in game, you press F3 and T at the same time, and it should reload all texture packs, all resource packs, and it will basically use the latest saved version of your file here, as long as you're modifying from the folder itself inside your resource packs. And assuming you have it, you have to have it selected though, because otherwise that's not going to work, because it wouldn't even think to load this texture if it's not selected. But yeah, what you do is you press F3T, and then when you can always Command S, I mean not Command S, Control S. Actually, it would be Command S if you're on Mac. But you press Control S. You can always just press Control Z here, and it will undo it, but it won't affect what your Minecraft game loads because it's not saved yet. In order for the Minecraft game to load it, you have to save the file. I'm not actually saving it, by the way. I'm just pressing Control S and then pressing Escape, which cancels. But that's basically how you make textures for files, or not textures for files, textures, like custom textures for Minecraft games, such as mine right here. This was actually based off of a dragon, a specific etheric dragon. Of course, it's fictional. I don't know if you'd be able to figure out what this is in reference to. I was actually using a reference file for it too, for colors. Of course, I couldn't have a crest up here though. That'd be fantastic. Well, yeah. That's, excuse me. That is how you modify textures. Now, remember that you have to select them in your Minecraft game, otherwise it's not going to actually work at all. And then also remember that you need to have some sort of... but yeah, I should mention that if you're just modifying, let's say, an etheric dragon, you can delete anything but the textures file. And then inside the textures file, you can delete GUI. And if you're just modifying a single dragon, let's say etheric, you can delete all other files. You don't need any of these unless you're modifying them, because the game can just pull the textures from the defaults, which is located in the actual mod file itself, which you probably aren't modifying. But yeah, that is basically how it works. Now, of course, when you're finished with it, it should look something like... That's not the right file. Where is it? There it is. It should look something like this, where you have assets and pack.mc meta, and it must be .mc meta. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Now, if you want to see the file extension properly, what you can do is... I believe it's in File, Folder, and Search Options. And what you want to do is you want to go to View, and basically, let's see here. hide extensions for known file types. When it's by default, it's usually checked. So what you do is you deselect that and press apply. And if you want your hidden files to show up, let's see here. I believe it's this. Yeah, if you want your hidden files to show, like what I did with my computer, is instead of it being on don't show hidden files and folders in the system, select that. Of course, this isn't really necessary to what I'm talking about, but it is convenient in some cases. But yeah, if you want your texture pack to have a custom image, texture pack or resource pack, depending. Mine's just the texture pack because I don't really modify sounds or anything. It's just the texture. But if you want it to have an icon, it's better to have it square because I believe it'll either crop it, or what I believe is more accurate is it'll probably squash it to make it square. So just remember to make it a square image, meaning your height and your width are the same value. Of course, mine is 655 by 655, and me dropping a G600 mouse on the floor because I can by accident. Let me just pick that up. Thank you very much, self, for dropping that. And my cord. Alright, so yeah. Of course, this, I don't know if there's like a maximum size for a icon, but I just have, this one is, for instance, 665, but yeah, you can always make the dragon texture larger, but it must stay like the same proportions basically, because otherwise you'll have odd warping or texture stretching. But yeah, that's basic tutorial on how I made a resource pack for the mod. And this is all because somebody asked me how I did it, because I mentioned it on the Dragon Mount forums. And I dropped my mouse again. Why? Where are you, mouse? It's because I'm half sitting on my bed and my mouse is sitting on my bed, so I'm kind of... my mouse is just sliding down. That's probably not a great idea. Let me move that back. Anyways, enough of that randomness. So that's pretty I'm just gonna say, like, that's the end of the video basically. There's nothing more for me to really say or rant on about. But yeah, this hopefully this time OBS didn't freeze on the very first scene, because that's what happened. But yeah, thanks for watching, and goodbye. I will now end the recording to stop you from watching, because I know if I don't stop it, some people will just keep watching, because that's how it works, right? Goodbye. I have no official outro.